What's your sense in the intelligence as from your like bureaucratic intelligence position? Like what uh, is remote viewing more of like an outlier technology? Like do people talk about it? Is it ever even in?
So I retired 13, now 14 years ago, actually. I retired in 2010.
Mhm.
In my entire career, I never heard anybody once speak about remote viewing in my entire career. Since I met Julia, I've talked to a couple of people who are retired, but they can sort of remember uh, when, because the CIA program ended in the late 80s, early 90s. They can kind of remember uh, little bits and pieces of that. Individuals that were involved, individuals that were advocates of it, others that were totally against it, and that was it. And in fact, after I met Julia about 2 years ago, I wrote an article about. My goal was to introduce the idea of precognition into the conversation, and so I wrote an article about how we know. I forget what is good thinking.
Mhm.
And I talked a lot about intuition
Mhm.
as kind of the entry, the gateway drug into talking about precognition. And people reacted so strongly against my talking about intuition that the
Mhm.
fact that I was using this as a way of getting into the topic of precognition went right over their heads.
Right. So the
Mhm.
last paragraph or two or three was
Yeah,
about precognition.
but
No one commented on that. They're like,
no one.
intuition fools you and it tricks you. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, to be fair, I think there were equal numbers who were kind of violently against intuition or who were really, really for it. I mean,
that's
so
good.
there were equal numbers on both sides. But what struck me as strange is that intuition was the go, no go line on this. So, to talk about precognition or the potential for precognition is just crazy. But, as I have pointed out to people, if you are a high risk, high performance organization, aviation, hospitals, astronauts, and the people doing this work um, are sometimes encounter uh, moments of decision that have to be uh, resolved very quickly,
Mhm.
and they can be life or death.
Right.
It would be really useful for you as an organization to know which of your staff are naturally intuitive, naturally inclined to this ability to perceive, and which are not. Because now you've created a trust factor, right? This
Right.
seems to me purely logical. A good thing to do, not particularly hard to do, even. But I've yet to encounter anyone who I've said this to who goes, "Oh yeah, let's get that started."
What is it?
Except for me, but I don't have the power to do that.
But is it that you named intuition? Is that part of it? It's like
I'm
that you
sorry,
It's the Reformation, right? I mean, it's this idea that you are,
enlightenment, Reformation, enlightenment, the
yeah,
mechanical view of humanity.
yeah, you are a fool. You are being tricked if you think that anything's non-material, right?
Yeah,
It's considered non-scientific, even though there's science about it.
right.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean, I get that, right? I get like the need to cling to that framework. Um, but then you have a missing persons case where there's a viewer who draws a map of a place she's never been, and the person who is the local recognizes the geography immediately, and you know that something important is happening. Um,
The argument that I am sympathetic to, that I believe is a valid point. So I would say I believe these things happen. I believe this is a talent that certain people have, that it could be nurtured in many other people. I believe all that. But exactly how you apply it, exactly how you operationalize it is a little unclear to me, or not a little, it's still unclear to me. And
Right.
even in that entire episode that you talked about, you got to the point where you believed you knew something, but now taking these next steps, convincing other people to actually use real physical resources, money to do X, Y, or Z is
Right.
hard. And that's like a small example of this bigger operational issue.
It
Right.
is huge. Yes, it's absolutely huge. And I think the recovering of, I mean, it also just gets into, oh, we didn't even talk about the perpetrator, which is
That's
another,
good.
right. It's another application of the method. And, yeah, I wasn't going to spend time on that. But yeah, it does get into, it clashes with law enforcement protocol, right? I'm guessing, but lots of things do.
Right.
So you just need open-minded people to move forward with it.